Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Task Force on Screen Time. Certainly, I know we are all joining from all over, as we always do, including people in our agency are joining from all over Kansas today. So we're grateful that you're going to spend a little bit of time with us. We're sorry that one of our co-chairs, Ava, has some student obligations today in leadership outside the state, and so she will not be here, but you're in capable hands with Brian, and I'm going to turn it over to him as we have a full agenda today. Brian?
All right. Thank you, Dr. Watson. Good afternoon. Welcome back, everybody. As we get started today, I just want to remind you that you should have received an email from Peyton earlier this week. With that, you should have received a survey link to determine how we wanted to move forward. Based on the results of that survey, we are going to decrease the discussion time for each motion to be a maximum of 5 minutes. We've also decided, for the sake of time, that we're not going to do breakout sessions for the large headers or the subgroups for each of the motions. As we're going through, if we find that we don't need a full 5 minutes for discussion, we'll just go ahead and roll through as quickly as we can. As we get towards the end of today's meeting, if we're not quite done going through all of the motions, we'll decide if we want to meet on another date or if we want to go ahead and carry on and push through and finish up the last couple of motions. Like I said, my hope is that we get into a rhythm and we get going pretty well. And, like as we get going, maybe we're able to get all of it done by 5:30. So we'll just kind of see how we're at that time. So we're going to pick up last week. We do have one motion to finish on personal devices. We're going to go ahead and put that on the screen, and then we'll get a recommendation on that, and then we'll move into the next section. Okay, we're going to look at motion 8, and with this one, it is for an exemption policy. So we're going to open that up for a motion. Does anybody want to raise their hand on this one? Okay, Kim.
I would like to modify this slightly if I can to recommend or a motion to recommend exemption policies be developed for students with IEPs, 504 plans or related health and educational plans when specified by, I don't know if I could say a medical professional. I know some of that is education related, but
Okay. Do we have a second on Kim's motion? John.
I don't know if it's a second. I think I'm with her, but maybe the process is when spelled out by a plan, by a health plan or IEP. It's like when the plan spells it out. Like for instance, we have a student that has that is a diabetic, so he carries it around because it monitors his blood sugar.
Okay. Are you comfortable making a second, or do we want to open it up for another second?
I'd say open it. I just was going to expand on maybe what she wanted to motion with.
Okay, thank you. Erica, do you want to make a second on that?
Can I ask a question before possibly doing that?
Sure.
Can you explain why you wouldn't just leave it as when specified in the plan to give the ultimate flexibility of who is involved in creating different plans? Because obviously that can look very different depending on the needs.
Okay, that's a good question.
can I go ahead and answer, Brian?
Yes, please.
My concern is lots of parents coming forward saying that it's required. So the importance of it being limited to what a medical doctor says when it is something like diabetes, and that I don't want to open it too far to mean anyone can put forth a requirement or an exemption, I should say.
Okay.
Can I follow up on that? So I've been a special ed parent for 14 years here in Blue Valley with 2 different kids and 6 different buildings and teams. And there's a lot of personnel involved, and then those are oftentimes ever changing. And it's not always a medical doctor that would need to suggest that. I hear the concern there, but I'll share that as a parent, you can't just walk in and ask for special education and just get it just because you think you need it. So it doesn't. I think if we're talking about IEPs and 504s and related health and educational plans, there is a whole process in place already with multiple personnel, building personnel, district personnel, and parents. So the process is already there to sort of prevent that concern from actually happening.
Okay. Tanya.
Um, I believe that we are spending time on something that is not within our purview, because an IEP or a 504 by its very nature is designed to meet the needs of the individual student. So for us to try and put something in place here that's going to allow that this will happen anyway, is what I'm basically trying to say, is that whether we pass this or not, I believe this has to happen because students will come with different needs that we have to address.
Okay, Amy.
So we don't have a second on the record, is that right?
We do not.
Okay. I would like to second this because I think that having something related to IEPs and 504 plans is helpful. And I wanted to read what Virginia did in their document for their statewide plan. It says guidance, let's see, that they have to address guidance recognizing students with medical needs and that they may require a medical exemption to the bell-to-bell policy included in their IEPs, 504 plans, and individual healthcare plans. And so I would like to second this motion and then realize that as it's crafted with like local authorities, they'd be able to refer to different documents to create something that works well. But I think it's important to address exemption policies when the panel presents to the state board.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Melanie, did you want to add anything to this discussion-wise?
My hand, because between Dr. Merrigan and Amy's comments, I think it's all covered, but I will just add that there is a legal aspect to this. Obviously, I'm on the state board, and so it will come before our board. We may be able to iron it out there, but I was a fan of option B, no recommendation is necessary, so I'll be voting no on this one. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and open this up for discussion. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands go up, so we're going to go ahead and put this up for a vote. Okay, you should have seen your poll appear on your screen. We'll take just a moment longer. Does anyone need more time to vote on that one? Okay, we'll go ahead and see the poll results here in just a moment.
Brian, I believe Lindsay's indicating she cannot vote.
Okay, Lindsay, would you send that in a message to Gabrielle? Send that in a direct message to her, please. Okay, Lindsay, were you able to get, okay. Okay, looks like the motion did not pass with a no of 57, a yes of 39, and abstained 4%. Okay, we will go ahead and move on to option number 9, personal devices and phone-free schools. And with this one, we're going to go and open it up for a motion. Okay, Lori.
I would like to amend the question about phone-free school option to include personal devices such as earpods, headphones, smartwatches, etc., and that to be included for elementary, middle, and high school.
Okay. Erica, do you have a second?
I do not have a second.
Okay, let's see if we can get a second before we open it up for discussion, please.
Yes, I was going to ask a clarification, but that helped that. Thank you.
Do we have a second on this motion? Okay, Chase.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second for the motion amending the question about phone-free school option to include personal devices such as earpods, headphones, smartwatches, etc., to be included for elementary, middle, and high school. So we'll go ahead and open it up for discussion. Okay, Erica.
Okay, got it. So I know it makes sense why some of these are why they're separated and chunked down for different decisions. I get that. Then kind of tracking back to how it all loops back in together. I guess my concern here or my question is this seems incredibly restrictive. Again, I am for sure coming from a special ed mindset, but even in downtime, this seems incredibly restrictive. And I'm curious where, if at all, we have it set up to discuss where staff and building staff fits into this. In other words, is the policy going to be mirrored for building staff?
Okay, other discussion? Lori.
I believe there's a staff motion that's on 17 maybe that addresses, actually it's 11, their personal device policy. So I believe that would be, the staff piece would be included there as well. My thought is if, since we did bell to bell with no phone, without a phone, you really can't do much with a lot of these, and they're a distraction. And if we're going to say that phones are a distraction in that case and they're to be put away, a lot of these will not work without those anyways.
Okay,
Is
thank you.
my thinking.
Kim.
As a parent of two teenagers during that downtime, Erica, that you referenced, I would love for my children to either be reading a book or connecting with classmates or doing something that helps them create a sense of community and belonging in the school, as opposed to most of the devices in this exception would isolate them to where they're not interacting with their peers, which I think is a huge component of the school day.
Okay, Erica.
I appreciate that, and thank you for explaining kind of what the thoughts were behind what's proposed. You know, again, that goes back to individual students, right? Some students, just by needing to participate in class and be around all those people, and at the high school level here in Blue Valley, being in a building, a big building with 1,600 kids plus staff, is extremely taxing. And you don't have to be a special ed student for that to be true. And so sometimes you just need a little bit of quiet so that you can then recharge for the next round. So the needs of each are going to be a little bit different. And them being there and participating in class and, you know, the other activities that go on, I think that's very important and it's needed. But then there are times where it's okay to be to kind of have a timeout. And yes, there's lots of ways to do that. By no means do I think technology is the only or best way to do it. All I'm suggesting is this goes back to the idea, and especially the older we get, especially if we're including high school in this, you know, we're not going to go through and ban every distraction. There's a long list of what can distract kids, right? Of all ages. We all know that.
We're getting close on time, Erica, so I do want to, we want to go ahead and jump over and get Katie real quick.
Yep, I gotcha. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you. This isn't about the motion itself, but a point of clarification. I may be misrecalling or misremembering, but I thought a meeting ago there was discussion that there would be definitions in the report that would have a definition of what personal devices is. So I'm wondering if this is a duplication or irrelevant or going to be contrary to those definitions.
I think this just expands upon the clarification of what those specific devices would be. But very good question. Okay, we are at the end of our time, so we are going to go ahead and put this to a vote. So you will see a poll appear on your screen in just a moment. If you don't see a poll appear on your screen, please let us know in the chat, and we will get your vote recorded in another way. Okay, does anyone need more time to vote? Okay, if not, we'll see our poll results here in just a moment. Okay, we're seeing looks like this motion passed with a yes of 68%, a no of 32%. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're now going to look at item number 10, personal devices as supplementation. There are two options on that. And Lane, would you like to make a motion on this?
I move to recommend that districts develop a process for teachers to report gaps in district-provided technology so teachers do not supplement lack or insufficient district-issued technology with use of personal devices.
Okay, thank you, Lane. Amy, would you like to make a second?
I would like to make a second on that motion.
Okay, thank you, Amy. We do have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and open it up for discussion. Okay, Erica.
It would just help me to better understand this. I understand like develop a process, right, for teachers to report gaps. So does that mean students that aren't given district provided technology? Like, what does that mean?
The way I would interpret that is, for example, if I have a graphic design class that the teacher needs to use cameras, I would want to know that the teacher needed digital cameras instead of requiring students to use cell phones as an alternative. Would be my interpretation. Amy.
This is one of the submissions that I submitted. So my meaning behind this one was to address equity issues when we've got students who can't afford cell phones or devices at home, then making sure that we don't have teachers then request for other students to use phones in the classroom, especially like you said, for photography and things like that, that maybe would look towards what the district needs to get either a new set of, maybe they get a set of smartphones for photography if that's the ideal thing, but just making sure that we don't lean back on students bringing the technology from home, because then it opens the doors to undoing a lot of what we've been talking about over these weeks. And then also just remembering that equity piece, that when we ask students to provide specialized equipment, then those students that don't have access to it, whether their parents have restrictions on it or income restrictions, that we're putting them at a huge disadvantage. And also just socially, we're putting them up for some awkward situations that seem possibly unfair in the classroom. So that was the feeling behind this submission.
Okay, that definitely helps me understand a little better, but honestly, that raises kind of a huge alarm bell in terms of what is the cost of a bell-to-bell recommendation then? Because the heavy use of QR codes and a number of different things that just come on even your most basic smartphone today, if the kids aren't going to have those, is it going to be the next thing that like, oh, we have to have a district issued smartphone that has all these, or now we have to have all these different resources and technologies from the district because we can't, the kids can't access them. And then of course the other issues that you just mentioned in terms of equity, right? Like, have we considered what this is ultimately going to cost a district? So it looks like if there's enough of a concern here and that's enough of a resource that we've been kind of leaning back on, I think, or that might have been close to what you said, then I think that's a real concern.
Okay, let's jump over and hear from Tana.
Speaking from an educator, a teacher, classroom teacher's perspective, I think that teachers have relied on kids having phones because kids had phones, not because kids needed phones. And so I do not see a massive gap. And I'm at arguably the state's biggest school with the most students. And I do not see a situation, it would be a very rare situation where we would have a classroom where the equipment we have in that classroom does not meet the requirements of that classroom. And so I think teachers have fallen back on the use of smartphones with the kids because kids have the phone. So I'm not going to fight it. I'll just have them use it. There are plenty of other ways that teachers can address the things that they have used. They have fallen back on using smartphones for without using the smartphone. So I don't see this as a big issue in our diverse socioeconomic school and probably the largest school in Kansas.
Okay, thank you.
Well, then do we need that?
Okay, reminder to raise hands. We do. Okay, looks like let's go ahead and time is up on this one. We're going to go ahead and put this to a vote. You should have seen a poll appear on your screen. Please make sure that you take a moment to vote. If you're having issues voting, please make sure that you send a chat message, and one of the KSDE staff will reach out to you to collect your vote. Okay, does anyone need more time to vote? Okay, if not, here in a moment, we'll see our poll results. Okay, for motion 10, it looks like it passed with a yes vote of 54%, no vote of 32%, and abstained at 14%. Okay, thank you. We're now going to move on to option number 11, which is about staff personal device policies. And Scott, would you like to make a motion on this?
Yes, I move that we recommend that districts create a personal device policy for staff.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Do we have a second? Lori?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for a staff personal device policy. We'll open it up for discussion. Okay, Erica.
Do we have a definition somewhere of staff personal device?
I believe that would be included in the guidance as it's put forth for the state.
You mean, so not somewhere, we're not defining it here? Is that what you're saying?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Does anyone know what that is? Does that include things like the AirPods, the smartwatch, what we just kind of looked at a couple motions ago? Does anyone know? I don't know.
Well, the way this reads, in my interpretation, is it would be up to the district to create that device policy. So it would be, we would recommend that they create that. John?
It might be a clarifying question, probably along the same. It might answer Erica's too. Will we just have a personal device definition, and then you can say staff personal device, student personal device? Because personal device is going to be very similar for both. So I think the only difference is what leads into it, whether it be staff or student. So I think the definition, in my interpretation, might be exactly the same, just the owner changes.
Okay.
And is there a reason why this is so different and leaning on the local school district to come up with this versus the very detailed, very restrictive personal device policy for students and not allowing the district to do that there?
These were all taken from the recommendations collected from our weeks and weeks of discussion.
Yeah, I know. I was there. I'm just trying to understand why we're doing it in one spot and not in another.
Okay, Scott.
And I made this motion because this has come up a number of times that we're expecting kids to restrict the use of their personal devices, but not the staff. I think it's in regards to Erica's question, I would say that we have an anticipation that, and this has been talked about a number of times, that students will try to figure out all kinds of different ways around the policy. I would hope that our staff and our school districts do not try to find a way and would respect the letter and the intent of the recommendation.
Okay. Danny, you also have your hand up.
Thank you. Sorry, I don't have a hand raising thing on my computer. I don't understand why that we have the same policy for teachers as we do for students, because we're penalizing the students that do things properly that they're told with the school, and so we're penalizing those kids. And so if the teachers can have the personal devices in, why can't the kids? That's just a question I would have.
Okay.
Don't think these teachers, this is disrespectful, but don't think teachers don't use that phone during class time and stuff also.
Okay, thank you, Danny. Tana.
So, speaking from the teacher's perspective, we are adults with fully developed frontal cortexes who have the ability to use wisdom and judgment in a way that 14 and 15 and 16 and 17-year-olds don't yet have. Now, are there kids of that age that do? Absolutely, there are. But once again, from my perspective in this large school in which I teach, the vast majority of kids do not. On the flip side, the vast majority of teachers do use wisdom in their use of cell phones.
Okay, we have
and I think that's the distinct difference.
All right, thank you, Tana. We have just a little bit less. We're going to hear from Lindsay real quick and then Chase as well.
So question for the person who made the motion, could we amend this motion to recommend that the district creates a personal device policy for staff that mimics or mirrors the student device policy? To be a little bit more specific.
This far in the discussion, we need to go ahead and Chase, real quick, we can hear from you.
I was just going to say, I presume most school districts already have some form of policy regarding employees using phones during the workday, or maybe just using good judgment. And I'm going to say I probably trust that our teachers use good judgment on when to use cell phones. I mean, just like some schools don't allow students to chew gum, but teachers have that privilege. And some schools don't allow any drinks in classrooms like soda except for water, but teachers get that privilege to have soda. I think this is just no different. Some teachers are able to use the device in a certain circumstance, but I'm going to say we're going to trust our teachers on this. Good job.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and put this up to a vote. So you should see a poll appear on your screen here in just a moment. Okay, you should have had a poll appear on your screen. And if you're having issues voting, please make sure that you list that in the chat so someone from KSDE can help with that. Okay, does anyone need more time to vote, or is anybody having issues? Okay, if not, we'll go ahead and see the results of our poll here in just a moment. Okay, looks like motion number 11 for staff personal device policy passed with a vote of yes of 74%, 22% for no, and 4% for abstained. Thank you. Okay, we're going to jump into number 12, personal property infringement. Do we have a motion? Please raise your hand if you would like to make a motion on this. Okay, Amy.
I was going to say actually option B on this one, that there's no recommendation on this topic.
Okay. Could you word that in that you would like to make a motion on that?
Yeah,
please?
you bet. Sorry. I
That's
would
okay.
like to make a motion that we provide no recommendation on this topic.
Okay, thank you. Erica, would you like to make a second on this?
No second. I actually would like to make a motion to do option A.
We have to do we need to see if there's a second on this one first. Kim, would you like to make a second on this?
Yes, please. I second the motion.
Okay. Do we have discussion on this? Erica.
I mean, I got to ask, like, when it comes to banning something, we're going to go into a lot of detail, and we're going to want to tell the local district, and we don't assume what they're doing, and we don't trust what they're doing, but we're not open to highlighting the fact that, encouraging them to, set expectations for students, what they should do, what they shouldn't do in order to make the best of their learning environment. We're not going to make a recommendation. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, guys.
Okay, Amy. Amy, I think you're still muted.
Man, I really phrased everything so perfectly when I was on mute. I was going to say that this, I think, goes with digital citizenship education. So that's why I was saying that I think it might be redundant, and we could address some of that education of what to do with personal devices outside of the school day with that next number 13 vote.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Okay, I'm not seeing any further hands up on this one, so we're going to go ahead and put this to a vote. You should see a poll appear on your screen in just a moment. And again, you're voting on option B for no recommendation. Okay, you should have seen a poll appear on your screen. Take a moment to submit your vote, please. If you have issues voting, please make sure that you notify us in the chat so someone from KSDE can help. Okay, does anyone need more time voting? Okay, we'll see the poll results. Okay, this passed with 67% yes, 22% no, and 11% abstain. Thank you. Okay, our focus is going to start shifting towards screen time and mental health motion recommendations. Again, we're not going to have a large discussion on this item as we move into this. We're going to just start moving through with these. So with motion number 13, digital citizenship. So would someone like to make a motion? Lindsay.
Yes, I'd like to move that we recommend districts provide digital citizenship education from non-industry resources that incorporate unbiased and independently funded research.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Do we have a second on Lindsay's motion? Melanie.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. Do we have discussion? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so if you do have discussion, please raise your hands. Otherwise, we are going to move a little quicker on this one. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. Please wave really big if you're wanting to talk, and otherwise, okay, we're going to go ahead and put this to a vote. You should see a poll appear on your screen. Again, we're voting on option B. Make sure you take a moment to submit your vote. If you have issues voting, please let us know in the chat. Does anyone need more time to vote? Okay, we should see our poll results on the screen here in just a moment. Okay, it looks like this motion passed with a yes of 85%, no of 7%, and abstained 7%. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to number 14, stakeholder education. Does anyone have a motion that they would like to make on 14? Okay, Kim, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would like to move option B, recommend school districts share peer-reviewed research and discuss mental health dangers associated with unsupervised use of social media, gaming platforms, and messaging, texting with students, families, and school staff.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Do we have a second on Kim's motion? Connie?
I'd like to second that, please.
Okay, thank you, Connie. We do have a motion and a second. Does anybody want to discuss? Okay, Melanie.
If I'm reading this correctly, then because the requirement would be that districts must use peer-reviewed research, that would keep them from using anything that's not been peer-reviewed, even if it's a published article from what we might call a reputable source, something that an English teacher would normally allow. So this is specifically disallowing anything that's not peer-reviewed. Is that correct?
I think in the spirit of it, it would be more of just a recommendation of leaning more towards the reviewed items, but I think it still leaves, since it's worded as a recommendation, I think it still leaves the leeway that you could look at varying sources, is my interpretation.
I like your interpretation, Brian. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on this item? Okay, I'm just scrolling through real quick, not seeing any hands. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put this one to a vote. You should see a poll appear on your screen. And again, we're voting on option B. Please take a moment to vote. Again, if you don't see the poll, notify us in the chat. Okay, does anyone need more time to vote? Okay, if not, we're going to go ahead and see the poll results here in just a moment. Okay, looks like that motion passed with a yes of 89%, no of 7%, and abstained 4%. Thank you. Okay, it looks like we're now up for motion 15, with it's just talking about parents determining appropriate use. Okay, do we have a motion on 15? Okay, Melanie.
I guess that if we're going to do this as we did the one before, I would recommend option B. So I'm making a motion that no recommendation is necessary.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. Do we have a second on Melanie's motion? Eric, would you like to second her motion? Okay. Laura, would you like to second the motion?
Yes, I will second the motion.
Okay. We do have a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and open this up for discussion. Erica.
I guess I'm disappointed. that there is seems to be a lower priority on parents being the primary director of what kids are doing or not doing. So I wanted to offer to motion option B. That's why I raised my hand when I did.
Okay. Katie.
For me, I just want to, I guess, explain to you the option B. I really appreciate because I don't even understand what option A means in terms of a recommendation for a school district. So without some more clarity, because I do feel like as a parent, I can already determine what's age appropriate, but that's different from the school or the district and their guidelines. So for me, option B is better because option A is absolutely unclear.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Melanie.
I'll just share that I'm very much with Katie on this one. As I read option A, I'm not sure what role that statement plays in what we're trying to accomplish here, and so that's why I moved for the no recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm scrolling through and not seeing any further hands. Is there anybody else with a discussion item on this? Okay, if not, we'll see a poll appear on our screen here in just a moment. Please take a moment to vote. Again, you're voting on option B on motion 15. Okay, once again, if you have issues voting, reach out in the chat. Okay, final call for a vote. We'll see poll results here in just a moment. Okay, we have a yes of 96%, no 0, and 4% abstain. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to move on to number 16, and this is revolving around communicating via social media. There are 5 different sub-options listed there, so take a moment and read through those, and if somebody would like to make a motion, please raise your hand. Okay, Lindsay.
I would like to move option B that recommends districts develop a robust website and communication option that does not use social media to inform or communicate with students.
Okay, we have a motion. Erica, would you like to second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Does anybody have any questions or comments for discussion on this one? Okay, Lane.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if this were approved by the task force, would that mean that schools and school districts wouldn't be, we want to encourage them to stop using social media altogether, not just in communication with the students, but also with their greater community? Just a food for thought.
Okay, Kim.
My question, I just wanted to confirm that this option means, it says that does not use social media, but is it a hard no recommendation to not use social media for students?
Again, I think it's, I mean, my interpretation is it still falls in that this is the recommendation. There's still, you know, it's still up to the district once the guidance is put out there. Lindsay.
Thank you.
My interpretation when I made the motion was that the school districts would have ways of communicating with parents and students that was not relying on social media. So whether that is text, whether that's a phone tree, whether that's some other way of communicating that doesn't require that students and parents go on Facebook or Pinterest or whatever X to get the information they need.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Lori.
I guess just maybe some clarification. So this is in general, the way this is reading, if I'm reading it right, because above it specifically says during the school day, this says no social media at all, like to communicate any kind of anything, even after like the school day. Am I understanding that correctly, or is it specifically just during the school day, as it mentions in a couple of the other motions?
Amy.
The way that I'm reading it is that it's not just during the school day, but also after hours. And the point would be to try to disincentivize students from communicating through social media, since I mean, a lot of different districts are part of a lawsuit against social media because of the harms. We're trying to disincentivize kids from getting on social media at all. So that's why it would be not just during the day, but after hours as well.
Okay, Tana.
So it's still unclear to me, so I'm hoping someone can clarify this. How it looks to me as we're saying we don't think that that schools should use social media, period, ever. That's how I'm looking at this, and am I misinterpreting this, or is that what people are saying? Or are we saying they can use social media, but we want to make sure that we have a way to communicate that doesn't necessarily rely on social media, that both things can be used, but we want to make sure social media isn't the only thing being used? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Tana, that's my interpretation of it. For example, I don't think there's a restriction on using Facebook, posting something to Facebook, but in general, I think a district should have, I think it's saying that the district would have options to continue to send, like mass text message type system. It would be my interpretation. And again, I'm just offering that as my view as an educator. I'm not, trying to sway a vote one way or the other there. Okay, Sue, we haven't heard much from you today.
When we have done parent surveys about communication, we often hear from our parents that they don't get the communication when it's very limited. But since we've added social media, different platforms, we have less concern there from our parents, because parents use all kinds of different platforms and social media. And it has been useful in our district to have that amount of social media out there to blast information out to our parents. I think probably where our concern comes in is when we have individual staff communicating with students on social media. And for me, that's where the concern would be more so than the blast of information to parents on social media.
Okay, we have just a moment left. Lane, very quickly.
Is there any way we could have the original motion maker go back and clarify as to whether this means in addition to social media rather than outright saying no social media, just for clarification's sake so this gets handled correctly in the report?
Okay, we could open that up to the original motion maker. Do you want to make that motion or make that amendment?
I think I was the original motion maker. This is Lindsay. And I think the clarification that's been provided covers what Lane was asking for, not reliant upon social media. Social media is allowed. It's just not the only way of getting information out there.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Okay, discussion is up on this one. We're going to go ahead and put this to a vote. You should see a poll appear on your screen here in just a moment. Again, you're voting on option B for motion 16 regarding communicating via social media. Take a moment to cast your vote.
Something got added in here as we're voting. Something got added in. Not the only means of communication.
This is Lindsay. I think that was just typing in what I said as the
Oh,
clarification.
okay. I guess it just, for a half a second, it seemed like it might actually negate what you had said on your, the way you wrote it of not being reliant on social media. Like the key is not reliant on social media. That you don't have to be on social media in order to have communication with the district.
Okay, let's make sure we have our votes cast. And last call for votes. You should see results appear here in just a moment. Okay, it looks like this motion passed with a yes vote of 57, no of 39, and abstained 4%. Thank you. Okay, it looks like we're going to jump down to number 17, breaks from screens. Do we have a motion on number 17? Erica, would you like to make a motion on number 17?
Yes, I would like to make a motion for option A to recommend educators encourage regular breaks from screens throughout the school day. I would actually change the word encourage to just take that out. Recommend educators take regular breaks from screens throughout the day.
Okay. Okay, we have Erica's motion with that change in wording from encourage to take. And Lori, would you like to make a second?
Yes, I will second that.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Scott?
The way I'm reading this motion, it says that educators take regular breaks. What about the students?
Yeah, that was, I think they were trying to adjust for what I said. And so it might have been confusing the way I said it. It's good that you pointed that out.
Erica, would you like to clarify that?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to put the lower hand down. Yes, the clarifying would just be to recommend that educators, that we recommend educators have students take regular breaks from screens throughout the school day. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Lori?
I just didn't know if you needed a second as that was amended, and I will second to what it's amended to.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the amendment there. Do we have any discussion on this? Okay, I am not seeing hands. Wave them really quickly if you do have any discussion. Okay, with no further discussion on this one, we're going to go ahead and move to see a poll here in just a moment. Yes, you see a poll, go ahead and vote once that appears. Again, we're voting on motion 17, which is recommending educators have students take regular breaks from screens throughout the school day. Take a moment, cast your vote. Here in just a few moments, we will see the results of that poll. Does anybody need any more time? Okay, we'll go ahead and see the results. We have 96% yes, so it looks like that motion passed. We have 4% no. So thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on. And in this, we're getting into the section for parental oversight of district devices. Okay, looking at number 18, do we have a motion for this? Katie.
I'd like to recommend option B, to recommend school districts manage devices in such a way that the default settings protect students without any parental supervision necessary.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Do we have a second? Erica, would you like to second this? Okay, do we have a second on Katie's motion? Laura, would you like to second?
Yes, I'll second Katie's motion.
Okay, thank you. We do have a motion and a second. We'll open it up for discussion. Erica.
It defies common sense to have something like this. Absolutely defies common sense. It doesn't make it any easier. There's been a lot of conflict between parents and school districts, especially over the last few years, especially when parents find out how easy it is to get to certain places on district devices. So it's shocking again that you would even consider not having any parental supervision necessary. I mean, there are easy technical settings to be able to require parental supervision. So it's not person intensive. It's not man hours intensive. So to me, this is just shocking.
Okay, Melanie.
Erica, I suspect that you and I read this from the same emotional place because I completely understand what you're saying. And I immediately went back to the motion sheet and scrolled down to see what the next items are. And so if you look at 23, that might make you feel a little bit better because we'll be voting on it shortly. And there's an option there to recommend school districts utilize device management systems that allow parental controls to be put in place on district-owned devices. I think the spirit of this motion that's been brought is that this is the baseline, right? That they should be able to turn on controls and immediately start blocking things without any parent having to go in and set something, that there's already protection in place once they flip the switch. That's how I read it.
Okay, thank you. Amy.
Yeah, I think that we're on the same page on this one. So this was one of the ones that I recommended something similar to this, if not this one. And it was so that kind of like the Kids Online Safety Act that's trying to be pushed through, that we make sure the default settings are safe so that kids who don't have active parenting at home can take a device home and have it be as safe as possible. It's not so that there's no supervision. We want parental supervision and involvement. It's written so that if the device is at home and no parent was going to intervene, that it would still be as safe as possible right out of the box. So I think we're on the same page.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Katie.
I fully agree with what Amy said, and I just wanted to share from my experience. I think a lot of districts have content blockers, but they don't always work, which is why the preference for the default setting that protects students without parental supervision would be the recommendation, because districts manage those in different ways. Some have the content blocked even if they're outside of the district or the network, and others don't. So for me, option B is a much safer environment for a student.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Okay, any other discussion on motion 18? John.
I think this should go back to the original motion here. With this, does it need to talk about 24/7? I'm not sure that it says you have a content blocker that is not just on your network, that is built into the device, or how your device connects to the network, any network, that it blocks all the time.
Okay, thank you, John.
Yeah, because I'll allow. A couple years ago, we used one that was network based, and our computers. It was really hard to start turning stuff on outside. We've switched drastically in the last 5 years to go really to where it works 24/7.
Okay, we've got Travis raising. Excuse me. We've got Mr. Githens raising his hand. I'm not. Sorry for not seeing it, Travis.
It's all right, and I'm not sure I warrant Mister, so thank you. But I just a point of clarification. Is it the contention? I don't have the other motions in front of me. I'm sorry, I'm limited. Will this be covered in another motion? I think Melanie alluded to that in number 23. Will this be covered? That's my question.
I think that the remaining motions expand upon that a little bit, Travis.
Thank you for the clarification. That will help in my voting because I can't read it specifically, but I thought that there was some language that covered this very topic in other motions coming up. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Chase.
I just wanted to say my concern was Erica's until you get to the very last word of the motion, which says necessary. I think that's the key here. Without any parental supervision necessary. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
Hopefully clarifies some of the concern.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and put this to a vote because our time is up. And you should see a poll on your screen here in just a moment for option B. If you don't see the poll or you're having trouble voting, please leave that in the chat. Take a moment to submit your vote. Okay, we'll do last call for votes if you're having issues. All right. Okay, looks like this motion passed with 90% yes, 10% no, 0% abstained. Thank you. All right, I do want to apologize in advance. My allergies sometimes get the better of me, so I do apologize if I get a little froggy here and there. We're going to move on to motion 19. Lane.
I move to recommend acceptable use policies be written in age-appropriate language for all grades.
Okay, thank you, Lane. Do we have a second on Lane's motion? Tana.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll go and open this up for discussion. Tana, do you have additional? Okay. Melanie.
I just want to say that I really love the idea of having this language accessible to children of all ages so that they can follow along with what the change is that's happening here and why it's important. I just really like that this is student focused. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'm scrolling through looking for hands. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands, so if you do want to discuss, wave your hand or raise your hand. Okay, if no other discussion, we'll go ahead and move this into a poll. You should see that on your screen. Please take a moment to vote. Okay, if you're having issues voting, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll see the poll results in just a moment. Okay, it looks like this passed with a yes of 97%, no of 3%. Thank you. Okay, it looks like we're ready for number 20, where we talk about district-owned device education. We have a couple of different options that are presented there. Do we have any motions? Okay, Erica, would you like to make a motion on number 20?
Hi, yes. I would like to make a motion on option B.
Okay. We have a motion on option B. Do we have a second on this? Okay, Katie, would you like to make a second
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's go and open that up for discussion. Raise your hand if you'd like to discuss, please. Okay, Tanya.
I actually think we should do all three. I think that it's our responsibility as a school district to host educational opportunities for parents, to make sure that there are clear instructions, and to inform them of parental controls.
Okay, Tanya, thank you. Tana?
Yeah, I was wondering why these three are either ors. I don't see them negating. In the past, we opted for one, it negated the other ones in the section. I don't see these as negating each other, and so I'm trying to understand how it's formatted.
Okay. The original motion maker does have the option of making an amendment to that if they would like. Kim?
I was just going to say what you said, Brian. I was going to ask if an initial motion maker would modify it to include all three. Thank you.
Okay, Lane.
If our original motion maker would not like to go back and amend their original motion, there's nothing stopping another member of the task force from going after we vote on this one.
Correct.
Adding in the other two options afterwards, correct?
Correct. We would let this one, we would take this one to a vote if there's no amendment, and then we would, then somebody else could make a motion as they see fit.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other discussion on this one before we put it to a vote? Okay, I'm just doing a quick scroll for hands raised, and I'm not seeing any. So we'll see a poll on our screen here in just a moment.
Okay. Travis said he has his hand raised in the chat.
Okay.
It's been covered. Thank you. That question was covered.
Okay, thank you, Travis. That was for the last one.
It was for this question, Mr. Chairman, but it was covered in this question. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, any other discussion on this one? If not, we'll see a poll appear. Okay, make sure that you cast your vote. We'll do a last call for votes on this one here real quick. Okay, we will stick a, let's go and see the results here in just a moment. Okay, we have a yes vote of 64% and no vote of 29% and abstained of 7%. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Well, pertaining to the question that was on the floor before that I think maybe Lane brought up, and then this may be out of order, and you can call it out of order, sir, but knowing that this recommendation passed and knowing some of the comments earlier, I would like to make a recommendation or a motion that we also adopt option A and B along with option C for item
we'll circle
number
back to
20.
that one in just a minute. and get through 21, 22, and 23, and then we can put that one in there. Does that sound fair, Travis?
That sounds fair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, since that one passed, we're going to go ahead and move on to 21, balanced use. Do we have a motion for 21? Erica.
I'd like to make a motion for option A.
Okay, we have a motion for option A. Tanya, would you like to second?
I will second that.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on 21 for option A? Okay, I'm just scrolling through real quick. I'm not seeing any discussion. Please make sure you raise your hand if you have something. Okay, Amy.
I wonder if there's a different word that can be used besides balance, because so many times when we hear the word balance, it seems like 50-50. And I don't know that 50% of the time on screens during the day is a great approach, because there's so much research that shows that, you know, off-screen writing on paper, reading actual books is highly beneficial. And so I'm wondering if there's a different word that the person who recommended or made the motion, if they would switch it to. And I don't have a word right off the top of my head to suggest, but wanted to throw that out there for a conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy. Katie.
Similar to Amy's comment, the wording about not rely solely leaves a lot for interpretation. So I'm wondering if there can be some clarification in that also.
Okay. Tana. Tana, I think you're still muted. Sorry.
We do have e-based schools attached to our schools now, and that learning is solely technology based as adjacent to the school. And so I don't know how does that fit in with the e-based schooling that we do have in some regards, or would that be considered something separate? I'm trying to seek clarification on that.
I don't think again, this is just me speaking, not as the chair. I don't think that this negates that you're going to have some uses of platforms where it is primarily technology based in some schools. I think that is still, I think that is still a viable option for some learning environments. I don't think that's within the purview to address, in my opinion. Erica.
I think these are good questions. I would say that given the recommendation nature, I think what this does is, you know, bring eyes in the local district on the importance of not having a huge amount of the school day on screens, right? Given all the research that we've all been discussing about the stressors that brings. But I don't know that we necessarily have to like very specifically define it down. But I think it's important to emphasize that we're saying a whole day full of screens is not a great idea. So the different local districts can further define what that looks like.
Okay, Scott.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if the intent of this section is more about reducing the amount of digital learning experiences, and whether that would clarify some of that, because the balance thing is just kind of weird, and I would wonder if the baker would consider removing that says maintaining a balance and just say reducing digital learning experiences.
Okay, Amy.
Yeah, Scott, I think that reducing or something to that effect, I'm looking at the 45 seconds left. Digital balance, with my experience, is kind of one of those industry funded terms because they want it to seem like let's get as, a balance, a healthier way to use tech. But it creeps in and it's usually as much as possible. So I wonder if we could use words like in a transformative way that can't be replicated offline with other, I don't have it all worked out yet. I guess I'd vote no on this one and see if we could change the wording for a better recommendation.
Okay, we have 9 seconds left. Any other comments before we take this to a vote? Okay, we're going to go ahead and take number 21 to a vote. You should see a poll on your screen. If you're having troubles with that, please make sure that you leave a comment in the chat. Otherwise, submit your vote. Okay, last call for votes on 21. Okay, we should see the poll results on the screen here in just a moment. Okay, we have a yes of 70%, no of 30%, abstain 0. So we're going to go ahead and move on to 22 and 23 really quickly, and we're going to see how we fare, okay? Okay, we have option number 22. Do we have a motion? Kim?
For option A, recommend school districts develop policies that allow families to opt out of school-owned devices being sent home.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second? Eric, would you like to second that?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on option A for 22? Okay, I'm quickly looking for hands, and I am not seeing any. Last call for discussion. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put that to a vote. Should see the poll on your screen. If you're having issues voting, make sure that you let us know in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to say last call for votes. We should see the poll results here in just a moment. Okay, we'll see the poll results here in just a moment. Okay, looks like this one passed with a yes of 85%, a no of 8%, and abstained of 8% as well. Okay, thank you. All right, we are right up about 5:24, and we are at motion number 23, and then with the option to circle back. Just real quick, is everybody okay with just kind of going through and getting these last item knocked out super quick? Is that any big objections to that? Speak freely if you just have any major objections. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and press forward with these real quick.
I'm concerned about moving forward because we've done so much. I'm kind of exhausted, and this one has so many elements to it. I'd really like to digest it better than we have time for.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Is it possible maybe to take or entertain a motion to table option or number 23 and maybe circle back for the other?
We could. So if we want to pause, we do need to decide when we would like to meet next week. We would need to have possibly a very short meeting, but we can definitely do that.
How many are left? Do we, no, I can't see.
Number 23, it does, as Kim mentioned, it does have quite a few options under it.
I mean, is that sorry, that wasn't clear of me. Is that the last one or are there more after that?
It is the last one.
I mean, can we just stay an extra 10 minutes or whatever to have like 15 minutes to deal with whatever? I mean, if we had more after this, that would make sense. And I think it does deserve the time, but we've got 4 minutes plus if we just add it on 10 minutes now, we get it done.
I thought we were circling back to 20 as well.
We do have the option, so we would be looking at about 10 minutes max.
On circling back to 20,
I would agree with what Tanya says. Many of us have stuff scheduled after this. We didn't.
Okay.
I don't know that I allocated time for 5:30.
Sure.
Past
Yeah,
5:30.
That's perfectly okay. So what we will do is we will go ahead and we will circle back to item 23 next week. It should be a much quicker meeting. Peyton, do you have a poll where we can vote on meeting dates available now, or do we need to send that out later? Oh, she does. Fantastic. So you should see a poll on your screen for a couple of additional meeting dates. Go ahead and cast your vote.
As a quick clarification from KSDE, we are intending for each of these meetings to take place at 4 o'clock.
Okay, thank you, Gabby. Okay, please make sure you've cast your vote for the next meeting time. Can we go ahead and get that result now, just so people can get that on the calendar? Okay, it looks like the 30th at 4 is the best option. So we're going to plan on seeing everybody on the 30th at 4. That should be a rather quick meeting as we go through option 23. All right, I appreciate everybody being here tonight. I know we covered a lot really quickly. I'm proud of all of the I'm sorry, I've been muted. I appreciate everybody being here. We will reconvene on the 30th at 4 o'clock for a brief meeting to tackle number 23 and wrap up our discussion. Melanie, real quick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make sure that were we still going to cover the rest of 20 today, or will we also do that next week?
We will hold off on that one until someone can entertain making a motion on that on the 30th if they would like.
Thank you.
Okay. And Erica, real quick.
Just a quick procedure question with regards to number 20. I thought that once it was voted on, we can't go back. We'd have to do something new, but maybe I misunderstood.
No, we will allow making a motion to expand upon that one due to the nature of it. Okay, thank you everybody. Have a great evening, a good weekend, and we will see you all soon.